In the world of boxing, some names are recognized as legends. Muhammad Ali, Mike Tyson, and Joe Louis are names that are known and loved for decades after hanging up the gloves, while some fighters unjustly have their pages ripped straight from the history books. One of these pages belonged to Sam Langford, one of the greatest fighters in history, also known as the greatest fighter nobody knows. Today we will be looking at his life and his career and finally giving him the shine he definitely deserves. Sam Langford was born March 4th, 1986 in Weymouth Falls, Nova Scotia, an African-Canadian settlement which was mainly built by former slaves, Sam's grandfather being one of them. Sam was raised in poverty with a childhood marked by hardship. Especially at age 12, his mother passed away, leaving a huge void throughout the family. A void which his father chose to fill with drinking and became extremely aggressive towards Sam and his siblings. And after one beating too many, Sam decided to leave home for good, heading to Boston in search of a better life. Once he arrived in Boston, he immediately began searching for work which he would find working as a janitor at a local boxing gym, and it wasn't long before Sam started putting down the mop and picking up the gloves. Once Sam began sparring and training, his talent was easy to see. He had a unique blend of athleticism and intelligence that was seldom seen in a fighter so young, especially in those days when boxing was more akin to a barroom brawl. He quickly worked his way up the ranks and ended up winning the Boston Featherweight Amateur Championships at age just 15, and then Sam would quickly turn pro right after. Once turning pro, Sam moved up to lightweight, but at the time there was a legendary fighter dominating the division, going by the name of Joe Gans. Now, Joe Gans won the lightweight crown in 1902, and even the most bigoted reporters at the time had to reluctantly admit that Joe Gans was the best pound-for-pound boxer to have ever laced up a pair of gloves. He pioneered many technical maneuvers that are still used today, and it would take his peers years to merely replicate. A true genius in the ring who married intellect with the ability to knock a man out cold. Some people even credit him for inventing the jab. Many people at the time believed him to be invincible. Well, Sam Langford beat him as a 17-year-old. He thoroughly outboxed the champion over 15 rounds and won the contest, but didn't pick up the belt due to narrowly missing weight at the time. Nevertheless, a statement was made that night, and anyone who knew their boxing at the time knew the name Sam Langford. Hyped up by his performance against Joe Gans, Sam Langford moved up in weight again, this time to welterweight, and began tearing up that division too. And after 2 years of beating up contenders, he earned himself another title shot. And now, after beating the greatest lightweight of all time, the still teenage Sam Langford found the greatest welterweight of the time as his opponent, the original Joe Walcott. And the result was the same as last time, with Sam Langford thoroughly outboxing a legend. Reporters at the time claimed that this was even more one-sided than the Joe Gans fight. But somehow the judges, they were watching a completely different fight and somehow scored it a draw. A clear robbery which once again denied Sam Langford his name in the history books. After the robbery, the 5'7" Sam Langford began boxing any top-class fighter in any weight division that would have him, whether it be lightweight, heavyweight, or anywhere in between, beating almost every man that was ever put in front of him, whether it be middleweight legends like Stanley Ketchel or top-class heavyweights like Joe Jeanette. Although his natural weight class at the time was middleweight, he mainly fought heavyweights because they were the only ones that were willing to fight him due to having a huge size advantage, and most of them still lost. The old cliche of there being weight classes for a reason just did not apply to Sam Langford. Sam was convinced that if he just kept beating all the top-class fighters of any weight division, one of them was bound to give him a title shot eventually, surely. But you see, Sam's life and career was stained by the racism at the time, which created something known as the color line, which blocked the top black fighters at the time from fighting for world titles. A black fighter fighting for the heavyweight title, at the time considered the apex of masculinity, was considered the biggest taboo of all. But if there was one thing worse than being a black boxer at the time, it was being a black boxer who was actually good. The greatest champions at the time would hide when Sam's challenge came calling, so he and other exceptional black boxers at the time were forced to fight each other over and over again just to make ends meet. Eventually, he went on to fight Sam McVey and Joe Gans 15 times apiece, and Harry Wills an incredible 22 times, with the racism at the time forcing these men to forge their own legacy with the absence of world title bouts. One of these exceptional fighters was the great Jack Johnson, a man who broke the color line and became the first ever black world heavyweight champion. Johnson, a practical giant compared to Sam, they shared the ring with each other a couple of years before Johnson won the title. Even Langford's own fans didn't believe he could win due to the sheer size and skill of Johnson, and although Johnson gave Sam a horrific beating, knocking him down 2 times, Sam showed incredible heart to get up each and every time and keep bringing the fight to Johnson. By the end of the fight, both men were bloodied and bruised, and although Johnson won the contest, Sam won the hearts of the crowd with his undying bravery. When Jack Johnson shocked the world by winning the heavyweight crown in 1908, many people thought that he would offer Sam Langford a rematch for the title, but Johnson had other ideas. You see, at the time, America was on the hunt for a great white hope who could take the crown back from Johnson and return it to the white race, which suited him just fine. He could take easy fights for easy money, beating up random white challengers, rather than going to war with Sam Langford again for a fraction of the price.
I fought Jack Johnson once, before Johnson became champion, and Johnson wouldn't face him again. Just as Jack Johnson had chased Tommy Burns around the world. Nobody knows that Sam Langford chased Johnson around the world for a shot and kept chasing him. And when he finally cornered Johnson, Johnson's answer, drawing the color line, was, "Sam, nobody wants to watch 2 black men fight for the heavyweight championship."
With no title shot on the horizon, Sam was forced to repeatedly travel the world in search of paydays, fighting the best of the best that each nation had to offer. His ferocious boxing style and charismatic wit made him hugely popular overseas, with some parts of Europe even unofficially recognizing him as the world champion rather than Jack Johnson. He would fight over and over again, and since boxing at the time wasn't exactly known for its great record keeping, the actual number of Sam Langford fights is unfortunately lost to history, but boxing historians estimate it to be anywhere in between 200 and 600 fights, which is insane when you think the top level fighters today rarely even reach 50 fights. But all this activity was bound to take its toll eventually, and by the end of the 1910s, it really began to show, with an aging Sam Langford losing his famous speed and reflexes, but he still held on to his God-given power. However, one night in a battle with Fred Fulton, Sam Langford took a right hook that severed his optic nerve, permanently leaving him completely blind in his left eye. Unable to find any other kind of work, Sam was forced to keep boxing in order to feed himself, and even though his health was rapidly deteriorating, he was still known as one of the best fighters around. Jack Johnson had now lost the title, and it now was in the hands of the legendary Jack Dempsey, one of the most savage and entertaining boxers in history. Even he refused to fight Sam Langford, believing that even a Sam Langford in this condition could knock him out easy. And if you don't believe me, here it is straight from the horse's mouth.
I was very struck, Jack. You said in the book that at the time when you first came to New York, of course, then you were about 20 or 21, weren't you?
That's right, 21 years old.
And your manager wanted to match you against the great Sam Langford, and you say in the book that you didn't take the match because you felt that Langford would have knocked you out.
That's right, and my opinion now is the same as ever. I think Langford was one of the greatest fighters we ever had, Ed, and if I'd have fought him, I probably would have got knocked out, and I'm glad I never had the opportunity to.
But as the years went on, Sam kept losing more and more of his sight, to the point where he even had to be guided towards the ring before fights. He was now just a tool that promoters could use to put a notable name on their fighter's record, meaning the paydays got smaller and smaller until Sam became completely broke and completely blind and was forced to retire in 1926 after more than 20 years in the ring. After retiring with nothing to his name, Sam disappeared from the public eye for years, with his name gradually being removed from the lips of boxing fans, until eventually he was found 20 years later, blind, penniless, living destitute, in a cellar all alone. Despite this, those who found him claimed that Sam was never bitter. They quoted him in saying, "I've got my memories, I've got my guitar, I'm okay." In 1944, a newspaper column was published about Sam Langford, and fans rushed to donate to help him, raising up to $10,000 in total to pay for successful eye surgery and have him moved into a nursing home where he could live out his final years in comfort and have his vision restored enough to see himself inducted into the Boxing Hall of Fame in 1955. He passed away peacefully in his sleep a year later in Massachusetts. Sam Langford is without a doubt the greatest fighter to never win a world title. And despite never receiving that accolade, he still more than deserves a place on anyone's all-time top 10 list. During his illustrious career, he defeated 11 Hall of Famers, the second most in boxing history, with those Hall of Famers coming from nearly every single weight class. Even when he was half blind and out of shape, he was still feared by some of the greatest boxers in history, and he needs to be remembered not only as a greatest of all time candidate, but as a symbol of resilience, heart, and undying spirit. Sam Langford's story perfectly encapsulates why we love boxing so much. This sport is littered with stories of overcoming the odds and never giving up. So if you guys want to see more career breakdown videos of other forgotten legends, make sure to put their names in the comments below and I'll get to making them. But of course, guys, if you like the video, hit the like button, hit the sub button to help the channel out, to help it grow, and to stay notified for any great content that we got coming up very soon. But until then, guys, peace.